shows it. This meeting of the Lee County Board of Commissioners will come to order on this 4th day of June, 2012. First thing I ask is that everybody have their cell phones placed on silent, including everybody up here. Especially everybody up here. Commissioner Pascal, are you ready for the invocation?
Bow with me, please. Dear Father, you have said that the citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, on behalf of all who are gathered here today, I pray you grant each member of the Board of Commissioners a sense of the welfare and true needs of our citizens, the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, joy and satisfaction in the task they have undertaken, specifically in considering the matters which are before the board today. Please give each member the wisdom and strength to do what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in our county. It is in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need to make one change to the agenda, and that is our closed session, which was item 8. I'm going to move that up between items B and C under new business because some of the items that are contained in the closed session have to do with the budget. So I'm going to move that up between items B and C under new business. Other than that, are there any other changes, additions to the agenda today?
Move the agenda be approved.
Motion has been made to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Consent agenda. Any commissioner have any questions or concerns there? Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Next item are public comments, and we have 3 individuals who signed up. First one is actually 2 in 1. Is that right? Okay. Dr. Bud Marchand and Dr. Moss.
Dr. Moss and I are here to ask that, if at all possible, you attend tomorrow's night's kickoff of our Caterpillar Apprenticeship Program. I think that Dr. Moss can attest that we have got 18 young individuals who are very excited about this program. It will be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Both of us have advocated for a long time that we need to focus on manufacturing here in Lee County. And this is a unique program. And I'm going to let Jeff tell you what we just found out today about the size of the program.
With these 18 individuals, it will become, unless our data is wrong, the largest apprenticeship program in the state of North Carolina.
Wow.
So all we hope to do is grow it further with other business, other industries. We anticipate having approximately the same number of students each year going through this program with Caterpillar. So as we grow, we'll continue to keep that banner of the largest apprenticeship program in the state.
We really want to celebrate these young individuals. They're making a major commitment. Their parents are making a major commitment. Caterpillar is very excited. I can tell you that people from Peoria are very excited. Other community colleges are taking a look at this. This is real exciting. And if you could be there to welcome these kids into this apprenticeship program and to speak to their parents, I think it would mean a great deal to them.
Thank you. I'm very excited about this also. I've got it on my calendar. There are 3 other events tomorrow night, but that's priority number 1 for me, so thank you.
Congratulations.
It's a cap.
Do you have a listing of those individuals already, or?
Of the 18 students, I can
Correct.
get that to you, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'd like to see what the mixture is.
Okay.
Dr.
We
Moore.
were asked this morning, by the way, how many females,
Right,
and there are, I think, 4 females.
that's great.
But I think as word gets out that it's not that bad, for females to well, then we'll probably get more females in the program, or whatever the occupation happens to be.
Dr. Martek, if you could just tell everybody where it's going to be.
It will be at the CAT, the new part of the CAT plant out at the end of Womack Road. They will be right there. They have asked, I guess being Caterpillar, that if you have an official name tag, they would like you to wear your official name tag. You know, I can't go on and on about how neat this program is. These kids will be paid on the job. They will work during the summer at Caterpillar. They'll actually be working for Caterpillar in their junior year. And as Dr. Moss said, we hope every year to recruit about the same number into this program. This really is very, very exciting.
Thank you very much.
How are you recruiting for them in the system?
We're using a variety of methods. We do some open recruiting, which is where we'll go into classrooms and describe what the program is. We also use interest inventory type surveys to try to see if they have some type of interest in going into that as an occupational career. And then we actually do self-select. We'll go out and bring some folks in that might be in our machining program or some of our other career tech ed programs and say, have you ever thought about doing this as an occupation? So we're using a variety of methods, hoping that we're covering the waterfront as we're going through the recruitment.
We also have like a DVD for people, for kids and their parents to take a look at?
We held parent nights. The college held some parent nights. We've done some parent nights as well, so that the parents can get an idea of what the program itself entails and also what would be expected. We'll describe what would be the expectation from the business to the student and from the student's commitment back to the business.
It'd be nice to have it so
Well,
that,
and we will begin working tomorrow night on a DVD. Our TV channel will be there to film it, so we will be getting reactions from students and parents. And as they go through, I think we will have an excellent idea. We'll make a recruiting video out of it.
yeah.
We'll end up building what will become the recruitment video after the first group of students set the stage for what the next level of expectation will be.
One other question. Is this following a pilot of some type that Caterpillar has developed, or are we going to have a unique kind of turn on it ourselves, which would be?
It's definitely unique. We saw something similar to this when Jeff and I went to Peoria on the Midnight Special. But yeah, we've seen this type of thing. This is the way Caterpillar likes to bring in employees, because as you know, Caterpillar is a company that likes to hold on to their employees. He likes to train them, likes to move them through the ranks. This can become a career for an individual. So we saw it. It does have some unique Lee County features to it. It is a great partnership between the school district and the college. So we're very excited about it.
Years ago, back in the 80s, I was involved with one with Burlington Industries, but we did not have the community college participation. At that time, the students were working for Burlington, were paid Burlington wages, Burlington benefits, 2 students split a shift. And then they were, if they made it through the process, were all guaranteed employment with Burlington Industries until Burlington went to Mexico. But if you're asking, is the design unique, the apprenticeship design has been around for ages. Bosch uses it in New Bern. Many of the European companies that are over here, their desire is to have some form of apprenticeship training within their company, whether it's through the school system, community college, or college or university. So it's taking a little bit of all those pieces and as Dr. Marchant mentioned, making it unique to Lee County.
And just score one for us. These jobs are ones that move back from Mexico.
There were several of us who attended that rollout out of the high school, and so I'm very excited about it. I think there's some prerequisites that are involved with this also. So the counselors are involved very much, as well as the parents and the teachers. So good job. And Commissioner Parks, that's 5,000 Womack Road if you need to put your GPS.
Oh, no, I know where it was. I just wanted everybody else to know where it was.
Okay.
So,
All right. Next person on the list is Kirk Smith. And please give your address for the public record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kirk Smith, 3108 Avens Ferry Road. I would like to commend and thank the county manager, the commissioners on holding the line on the budget. Would have liked to have seen a tax decrease, but we understand the name of the game. So I do want to say thank you. Hope that the budget passes as written and that we look forward to better things in the future. Again, thank you.
Next person on the list, Frank Del Palazzo.
Frank Del Palazzo, 425 Rolling Hill Road, Sanford. First, I want to commend Commissioner Pascal. That was an incredible prayer. Thank you. I would like to remind the commissioners that at one time or another, all of you have either on occasion stated your concern for open government and transparency. And my strong concern is that 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock meetings of the Board of Commissioners do anything but foster involvement in the community. And that's a time when most of us are working. I happen to be self-employed with a little bit more flexibility. But yes, I'm aware that there is a videotape, but the videotape doesn't allow taxpayers to come and see you, speak to you, present their feelings, thoughts, or ideas, and that's really paramount. The 6 p.m. start time should be adhered to. There should be a statement in the handbook of employees letting them know that twice a month, if their job is such that it requires, then they may have to put some extra hours in. The commission and the employees work at the behest of the taxpayers, not the other way around. And it's to me, it's just basically common sense. And speaking about common sense, the one other thing that I wanted to mention is that the recent approval to expend contingency funds from Lee County High School's refurbishment for the parking lot before the construction and everything was completed is truly bad budget practices. I implore you, spend the taxpayers' money as though it were your own, not as though it came from individuals who don't know what's going on. That's in fact many times what happens. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the public hearing in reference to the volunteer fire department budgets. And Donald Andrews is chairman of that. I'll let you speak a few words first if you want to bring everybody up to speed, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back on May the 21st at your May meeting, the Fire Advisory Board made the recommendations for the fiscal year 2012-2013 fire department budgets. And just a brief recap, because I know you guys want to keep it brief. Cape Fear, there was no change in the rate, will remain at 9.2. Caroline Trace will see an increase from 6.7 to 7.5. That has to do with mainly with their debt for the construction of the new building at that site. Clearwater remains flat at 18.6. Deep River will see an increase from 10.4 to 11.3. Loss of tax base was the big impact there, and then finally bringing the substation online. I think if I remember correctly, they lost about $6 million in their tax base. Living Springs will go from 8.6 to 9.1. A little drop in the collection rate and fund balance. No change in their budget. Their budget is actually the same as it was for the current year. Northview will remain at 8.1. If you remember, they lost about $15 million in tax base. They come back in and cut $68,000 out of their budget, I believe is the number. Tramway will see an increase from 7.8 to 7.9, just 0.1%. And then Northwest Pocket will will see an increase from 12.4 to 12.9. They came back and cut their budget increase back to flat, but basically they also suffer from some loss of fund balance. So, the Fire Advisory Board met with these departments back on May 8th. We've gone through their budget and made the recommendations to you back on the 21st on these budgets as presented.
Anybody have any questions for Chairman Andrews before I open the public hearing? I declare the public hearing in regard to the proposed fire district budgets, volunteer fire district budgets open. Is there anyone who's wishing to speak in favor of or opposed to? Okay. That was quick. Hearing none, I will close that public hearing. Thank you, Mayor Andrews. Okay, I want to make one comment on that. I read some of the Herald reports, and it made it sound like this was just a tax increase. But I think it's important that the public know that there are other variables in there that these volunteer fire departments have no control over. For example, the collection rate. You know, they have a fixed budget. They've got the debt on their big expensive equipment that they have to pay. And so maybe one year, you know, Lisa and the tax department collect 99% of the taxes that are due them. The next year, because of the economy and whatever, they may only collect 96% or something like that. The point is, with that variance in there, you know, their fixed budget stays the same. So it's not always just a tax increase because they're spending more. In fact, I'm very, very proud. I serve on that. I'm very proud of their frugality. Mayor Andrews?
The total budget for all the fire departments increased a total of $4,000.
Okay. I wish I could say that for every government agency. And so I'm just very proud of these volunteer fire departments. And people need to realize that you're hearing Linda Shook say that this is one tax that I fully believe in because it's very open. You see exactly what you're getting. And people in the rural areas, if you didn't have these volunteer fire departments, you would not live in a rated area and you would pay a whole lot more for insurance if you could get it, other than what you're paying when you pay that fire tax that appears on your annual property taxes statement. So I've said my 2 cents worth. Anybody here?
I have a quick question regarding their public hearing. I know they've done them in the past, but I wonder what the attendance has been for them.
From the departments we talked to that had had their public hearing by the time we met with them, it's the same story every year. The only people who show up are the members of the fire department usually. I know Cape Fear, I'm a resident of that territory, and I was there, and all 3 chiefs and assistant chiefs and the board was there, and that was it.
And that's a very important meeting for them to be considerate of. And what time were they generally held?
7 o'clock.
Point made. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next item on our agenda under new business, consider resolution for construction of baseball, softball building on Tramway Road Park. John Kay.
Good afternoon, Chairman Cook, members of the board. Coach Miller came to our advisory board meeting last June and had an idea. He wanted to build a team room out on park property. And at that time, with funds being what they are, he envisioned it being a much longer process than what it has been. They have the money to build this facility now. And originally, it was going to be a 2-story structure, but anytime you build a 2-story structure, you have an elevator. So they cut costs and rethought the whole process. And the proposal is for approximately 1,800 square foot facility that will have both men's and women's locker rooms and coach locker rooms and shower areas. Laundry, Coach said he wound up, when the kids take their uniforms home, they come back and they're probably 4 or 5 different shades of school colors. And so they can control the laundry aspect of it a lot better. And then too, the addition of a storage, a large storage room to put field rooming equipment, hand tools, supplies, and that sort of thing for maintaining the field. And all this money is privately raised. Coach Miller's here, along with Vince Wenger, who's president of the Booster Club, and Barry Wilson, who coaches the JV team. So if you have any questions, what I can't answer, I'll pose to them.
Did we ever work out the ownership piece? Or do you know, remember what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir. I do know.
All right.
It will be on park property. If they ever vacate it or whatever, then it will be, belong to the park. The joint use agreement calls for any improvements that either the Board of Education or Parks and Recreation makes on Board of Education property. If it can be removed, then, when it's no longer needed or whatever, then it can be removed. But in this case, this is going to be a permanent structure.
But solely for them.
Well, Parks and Recreation and General Services will have access to the storage area so that we can put turfus and any other equipment and materials that we need in there for maintaining the ball fields. And we do the maintenance on the ball fields.
And John, if I may respond, Commissioner Reeves, in the resolution that's in your package, there is a statement that it will become part of the shared use agreement between the county and the public school system. So although the baseball team will have primary use for it, have it available for all of their activities, should there be a period when the building is not being used by them, it would fall under the shared use agreement. The county Parks and Rec could use it.
So what you're saying is we're modifying the resolution that we have in our package?
No, sir, that's paragraph 5 on page
Oh, okay.
47. That's in there.
The question I had was, and I talked with John about this earlier, back over in the meeting, they mentioned the utilities, and does the operation of the field house, does that include the utilities that they're responsible for?
Your resolution, the proposed resolution, has the school board responsible for all operation costs, which would include utilities. Now, whether the school board agrees to those provisions or not will be up to the board. But this should be a no-cost, under the resolution, this will be a no-cost operation for the county.
And we're going to pick up that tab.
And I should make one other point. I spoke with Coach Miller today right before the meeting, and the diagram of the building you have there, although generally accurate, is not the most recent version. The building has been expanded in its walls to come closer to 2,200 square feet than the 1,800 square feet, but the general design is the same.
And my comments are not in opposition, but for clarity.
Right.
Because I would, for example, suggest that you figure out a way to pay for that utility that's going to be coming.
Well,
And number two, other schools may have a similar interest in building similar facilities on county property. And we just need to have something in place that says, here are the rules.
yes, sir.
That's all.
Any other questions? I live in that area, and I just want to say I'm very proud of the Southern Lee parents and community, because it seems like they're having to do a lot of fundraising. I have been the recipient of those famous orange flamingo. They're orange, right?
Orange and blue.
In fact, I almost
In blue.
in blue. So the band boosters are always raising money, and the fact that this was privately raised funds, I'm very proud of you, and I appreciate all that you do. I sometimes get the feeling after talking to some of the parents in that district who live in my neighborhood that Southern Lee sometimes has felt like the stepchild that doesn't quite get all the same things, and they're having to pay extra maybe for some of the things that the students at the other high school get. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I'm proud of you all the same. Thanks. I need a motion.
Almost.
Okay. Motion has been made to approve the resolution as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Coach Miller, are you married to Heather?
Yes, ma'am.
You have twins or triplets? You have your hands full. Mayor Barry, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is to consider request from Board of Education for BT Bullock paving project. Dr. Moss.
I don't know what part I'm supposed to play. The
Asking part.
My board made me do it.
The usual part.
The usual part. You have before you a request from Terracon, who is an independent evaluator that came out and evaluated the parking lot, the bus parking lot for the most part, at BT Bullock Elementary. The school was constructed in 1998. The pavement is failing, and I think all of you have a copy of that report as well. They have recommendations in here as to what we need to do to stop the separation from the curb and guttering, and also to repair the stormwater issues that are both below and above the pavement. They do have a range of things we could do. We could phase it in over a couple years, or we could address it all at one time. The Board of Education is requested that I present this to the county as a separate allocation for BT Bullock and repair it all at one time. And I'll be happy to try to answer any of the questions you may have. Terracon, by the way, is a very respected company. If the Board of Education, if the commissioners and the Board of Education wanted to go through with this, we would hire Terracon to actually design the specs, bid the project, and oversee the project through completion to ensure that the work was done to their specification.
Before we have any discussion on this, I guess I need a motion on the floor.
So moved.
A motion has been made to approve the project. Is there any discussion?
I think the first question I have, do we have an estimate on the cost of fixing it?
Their estimate is around $300,000.
That's completed.
That's completed.
Well, you mentioned phasing it in.
Yes, sir.
How does that work, and what does it cost for phase one, for example?
The phasing it in, and I don't know the phased-in cost, Commissioner, because we just asked them for a total project cost.
All right.
The phasing in would start with the patching of the parts of the pavement that have completely failed, and try to address some of the stormwater issues that's causing the pavement to separate and to slide. And the phase-in process, by the way, would be a 2-year phase-in.
Okay, you do what, like phase 1 year?
Phase 1 during the summer, and since it's the bus parking lot, it would be difficult to do it during the regular school year.
Right.
So the timing for the bus parking for sure would have to be during the summer months. And for the other parking area, you could stagger the visitor parking and the staff parking.
Do you have a sense of, let's see, this parking lot's been there for about 15 years, is that correct?
If I'm not mistaken, we constructed the school in '98.
Okay, and would you say that this is sort of the normal wear and tear of a parking lot that also serves buses and vehicles like that, or was there some problem when we originally designed and paved it, or a little bit of both? How would you characterize that?
I think part of it is probably due to the topology of the property that was selected to build the school on. If you go over to Bullock, it's very easy to see that it'd be difficult to even add on there because of the topology. The other parts, as you've read the report, I know you read in there the soil borings that were done, and they believe part of it was due to possibly a flipping of the specs from bus to staff parking and from staff parking to bus parking.
Would that be changed in the future or not? In other words,
no, to correct the problem, everything would be brought up back to the specs as they should be.
But buses would still be
Buses would still
parked
be
there as
parking.
opposed to flipping it back the other way.
Correct.
I have a couple of questions. One, is this the only facility where this has happened in Lee County in the last dozen or so years?
Well, to my knowledge, I've been here for 4,
Okay.
but to my knowledge.
And is there a corrective action plan that would prevent the topological contribution to the problem? In other words, are we going to do something to fix the topology, or are we just going to build right back on top of it so that we can erode it again in another 10 years?
Now, as you go through Terracon's report, they believe that if you go back in and divert the water as you should do it and correct the substructure and come back on with recommended refurbishing, that they don't believe there would be any additional problems.
Okay,
And I'll have to say that I'm not an expert in paving, I'm just coming off of the report of an expert.
I might can help you there a little bit. I went out there and looked. It's sitting on top of a hill. It looks like when it was designed the first time, they done a lot of sheet draining to save the cost of putting in catch basins and drop inlets to control the water. In the sheet draining now, what's happening in the big drains, the water's jumping the curb, back coming back skying under the curb. And what it's created is a water problem. And the worst enemy asphalt's got is water. And right now, to answer your question, I don't know how you would address that as far as changing the topo out there now.
Well, we can't change the topography, but we can come in there with some other drainage.
You can increase the number of
Right,
catch basins.
to
There's
divert
areas
the
that
water,
right.
to try to manually move the water where we want the water.
That's right.
See, I'm always reticent to want to approve or to suggest that we remedy a problem until we figured out what caused the problem in the first place. And according to the Terracon report that I read, it seemed it didn't show the percent of contribution to the problem, but it did talk about clogging of curb inlets, curb cuts, and concrete gutters by debris interfering in the drainage, which kind of goes along with what you're saying. Now, if that's the problem, then my immediate question is, well, who's responsible to remove the debris so we don't have more water flow problems to cause the same thing to recur? I mean, obviously somebody messed up. Somebody's not removing the debris out of the drains so that water will continue to back up and cause a failure of the asphalt.
Well, I don't think that you could say someone messed up. You can ride down any city street during a rain, and as you see the water going down beside the curb and gutter, you see debris at the gutter entrances.
Yeah,
And I can't say that that's the city's problem or the county's problem, because someone's not out there when the rain's coming down, moving the debris to the gutters to get out there and make sure that it doesn't go in the gutters.
Well, then, my immediate reaction would be, then if there's no way to establish blame or to establish responsibility, is probably a better word, then why in the world would we give you $300,000 to go back and let the problem recur again? I mean, my first reaction is, what's the action plan that the school system has to prevent this thing from reoccurring?
The action plan is to do exactly what Terracon has suggested, and they are the experts. As I said earlier, other than Commissioner Oldham, I don't know how many other commissioners have experience in the paving industry. I don't. I can go by what the experts are telling me. I do know that if we don't do something to it, it will completely erode and be somewhere down the hill.
Right.
And I don't believe that's something the commissioners would want to do in endangering the lives of kids.
Right.
So if you read what they're suggesting to do for a remedy situation, in their mind, it should remedy the situation.
All right.
The in-depth questions, Commissioner, that you're asking, you may want to ask Terracon
All right.
and their engineers.
Let me ask you this: obviously, we would, if we follow Terracon's recommendations, we're going to change to some degree the substructure underneath the asphalt, which contributed to the failure. Now, that also begs the question in my mind about, well, who did this work in the first place, and don't hire them again to do this, to do the repeat work. If they messed it up the first time, let's not go back and hire the same company again. And I want to make sure that if we're gonna hire this work out to somebody and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix it, that we at least have someone or some company that we have some assurance is gonna warrant the work and is gonna do it the way that Terracon is suggesting.
Well, and as I started out the conversation, we would actually employ Terracon to look after it from the very beginning to the very end.
So they would be like project management
They
on the
would.
thing, and quality control.
Yes.
Looking at the test results, it doesn't have a thing to do with the way it was constructed the first time. It was constructed by the plans that was issued, and you can look at the test results. It's within the specifications that are allowed.
Well, it didn't say that in the report, though.
Well, I'm just telling you, it doesn't say someone's to blame either. I'm just telling you what's there, and looking at what they've done as far as the cores, they meet the specifications. And the problem is water. You can go out there and see that, and I think in their plan, they're talking about adding additional catch basins and drop inlets to take care of the volume of water coming off that hill.
Well, you would think that anybody that does the paving business, I'm sure you would know this, that anybody that is in the paving business would make sure that with the extreme relief that you have coming off the hill at BT Bullock, that you would have provisions for catch basins like that to capture that water. I'm an engineer by trade. I would have thought to do that. I was out there on May the 8th looking around during the primary election, and I noticed the failure myself. You can't miss it. And it's clear that it's not the normal type of asphalt wear and tear. You can clearly see the erosion of that asphalt, and obviously the first reaction you have is that somebody didn't put this thing in right. Either that or we got serious water drainage problems down in that area, or both. And
you're talking about design, Jim.
Well,
it wasn't designed properly.
well, maybe it wasn't designed, but it was also then implemented after somebody designed it. I'm just saying, let's not go back and overlay right back on top of the same mess we created the first time. Let's fix it this time and do it right. If it's 300,000, then fine. If it's more than 300,000, let's get a fair estimate in here to get the water drainage right, or to get a fixed responsibility to remove debris out of the storm drains so we don't erode the asphalt again. Because we don't have the money to be wasting $300,000 every few years on asphalt repairs. We just don't have that kind of money.
I have a couple of questions. When I was out there last April, it looked like that was fairly new looking. Have we overlaid it since '98?
Not to my knowledge, no. But but I don't believe, Commissioner, if you were at BT Bullock in April, that you walked the entire parking lots, because if you had walked the parking lots, you would have observed that.
I did see it. I saw it then, and it looked, I'm just looking at the coating of the asphalt, thinking, this doesn't look good.
Patching done. He's probably looking at the patching.
Yeah, we've not repaved the whole parking lot, and periodically we'll reseal and restripe.
Okay. The other thing is when we had our last joint Board of Education Commissioner meeting, I asked 3 times, is there any new projects and what are the priorities of the projects? And I was told there were none. I have a real concern that we keep having projects coming up that we didn't know about. We need to, get a priority list. And if it was done a year, like I said, it was in bad shape a year ago, so somebody should have been already saying to us, we have something coming up. And like I say, the Board of Education says we don't have anything. So I have a concern about we keep getting requests that people, we should know ahead of time so we can start planning on these things.
Well, if you notice, the date of this report's May 11th. It's not prudent, I don't think, to talk about things you don't really know about until you have a report from someone that does know about it. So as soon as this report became available,
okay,
the
but
report
you
was shared
knew
with commissioners.
that it was going to
We
be
knew that we
done.
had some concern. We didn't know the depth of the concern or exactly the ballpark figure of the repair, or if we could actually do the repair in-house.
Yeah, see, we need that information as soon as you have a concern.
They had our capital outlay sheet.
Right.
And I'll go back and look, but it may have.
But we asked for priorities. We asked for, what's the next concern that you have, and we were told nothing. And
Well, if you go back and look at our capital outlay request, even though it doesn't end up as the Board of Education recommendation, You can look at that sheet that I've provided to you over the last 4 years and see a variety of projects. Maybe what we need to do is just list everything as a request to you and ask for the whole $10 million or
Well, no,
whatever.
what we asked for was the priorities, because we know we don't have enough money for everything, okay?
And that's what we were
But
doing.
we do need priorities to say, you know, what can we look at to plan to fund? So that's all we're saying.
One other thought about that property. I don't know for those who remember, but that's probably the most challenged piece of land, as I recall, before it was constructed on that we have in our school system.
It's the most challenged piece
That-
that we
that-
have in the
that's-
school system right now.
That's what I'm saying, and I don't know, I can't recall the conditions under which it was purchased and made available to provide that fine school, but it really is, I can well imagine how, short of perfection, that to get it just right, these are things that happen under school budgets, under county budgets, that sometimes come up a little bit short because of that sort of the unknown factor there, how the water does indeed flow, where it goes and those things, and then you begin to get underneath perhaps good construction of the parking lot, but these are those kinds of topographical problems that you just can't hardly get around. I mean, that sounds like an excuse, but 15 years worth. By the way, I presume that this bidding and resurfacing would have some type of life expectation to it, like.
I think all paving probably has a life of about 15 to 20 years. I'm not sure, but I think
That's pretty well
I
the
think that's about
ballpark.
the industry standard.
All you're going to get is a 1-year warranty. I don't care who does it.
You know, and in terms of the property, I just assumed y'all got a great deal on the property.
Let me ask you this question. What's the
Actually, we did.
what's the priority, the relative priority between this and, let's say, the Lee Senior parking lot repaving? Which would be a higher priority to you?
I think they're two different projects, and I don't.
That's not my question.
I don't tie them together.
Which would be a higher priority for you if there were limited capital funding? Which would be the top priority, the Lee Senior parking lot or the drive and parking areas of Bullock?
Well, to start off with, you can't take the funding from Lee Senior and use it for Bullock. That's illegal. So that's why.
But that's
it's
not my
even
question
an argument
again. My
piece.
question is, which is a higher priority for you in terms of capital
They're
outlay?
probably
for
both
paving?
about the same, because if you look at the pavement at Lee County High School, it is also completely gone. And that pavement's probably been out there more than 15 years.
Oh, yeah. Probably 30 or 35.
What will
And,
this do
you
to
know,
our
Lee
budget?
County built about 4 schools in this same era, in 98, 99.
There, but
And this is the only one of the 4 that's having this problem. That's why I'm saying it's probably a site issue, not necessarily a paving issue. The other 3 schools that were built at the same time with essentially the same blueprint are not experiencing this problem.
John, you had given us a recommendation, which I agree with 100%, when our packets came out. Could you brief
Well-
everybody on what you're recommending?
Sure,
this board
and I
to
think
do?
what we have to look at in that recommendation also is what is in this list as well, because if we follow through that recommendation at this time, something or things on this list will not get done. They'll have to go back and reprioritize, and understanding that things will not get done. My recommendation was to recommend to the Board of Education they use the FY 12-13 years allocation to pay for this project. And really that is based upon where we stand right now with our fund balance and where our projections are for the coming year and then the following year. So we think we're real close to that 14% after this year, and if we don't make some modifications during the year next year, we will fall below that 14%. So, taking $300,000 and adding it to the allocation is, we felt a little uneasy with.
So who should make the call on what comes off that list? Is that the school board?
The school
Yes.
board will have to make that.
That's not the commissioner's
Yeah,
responsibility.
that, and the reason I gave that is because this, it shows what, what they asked for on that list.
Well, I have this question about the,
Let me say that if that is the will of the commissioners, this project will most likely not be done. And I can tell you why, because based off of the county manager's recommendation, I've already had to go in and decide what my recommendation to the board is going to be on cutting $626,000 out of the necessary Commissioner Parks needed capital projects this coming school year that are the responsibility of the county. So to go in and now say that 300,000 more has to come out, that's the equivalent of the county funding 25 cents per square foot for all of the capital needs for all of the buildings.
We're not cutting the funding.
I
We're
said-
actually increasing the funding from last year to this year, or from the current year to next year.
No, if the recommendation from the commissioners is to set aside 300,000 of the funding you're providing, then the remaining funding equates to 25 cents per square foot from the county.
It's all in the same pot.
what about the quarter cent sales tax, any excess over that? I was trying to think my way through, is there a possibility of, that is after we've paid debt service on the high school, are there dollars there that, say, over a year or two that could be used there? And would this be something that you would be?
Well, I don't have control over that. You do. All of that goes into your general fund, and then you decide where you're going to spend that excess revenue. And
Well,
you do have
We
excess
apply
revenue.
we apply it to the Sandley Middle School debt payment. Because
Excellent.
we did not raise taxes or anything to pay for the Sandley Middle School. So it's been a blessing to us to actually have more revenue than is needed for the Lee County High School debt right now, because it goes towards a debt that we didn't really allocate money for.
Could, let me ask a question, Dr. Moss. What would be chances on doing, say, phase one and safe it up, say for 12 months till we could see, we'd find some more money maybe?
That was one of the options in the report, is to phase it in.
Right.
Well, if it seems to me like we're hopefully about to vote and resolve this one way or the other. But you pay now or you pay later, and if you pay later, we're going to probably be talking to you again at a higher rate if this diminishes. And I think we really need to move on this and at least do phase one, get it under control, or is it not going to continue to deteriorate? And then we'll be looking at a bigger problem.
It will continue to deteriorate.
Is there any danger involved with this deterioration? Is there, in other words, vehicles, buses?
Could they slide down the hill?
Yeah, could they slide down the hill, one after the other?
You read about that every day in the paper. I'm not sure whether a sinkhole would be created or if the pavement would loosen up enough to slide and create problems. I'm not an expert in this field, so I rely on the folks who are to advise me.
So could
You don't read about it and stamp it.
could we go back and get a recommendation for phase 1, 2, or 3 and see what the cost would be for each one of those phases?
I could.
Well, I think that Commissioner Odom and Commissioner Womack both made very good points. I'm very supportive of a phasing in, and one of my primary reasons is that I think there needs to be a revisiting of how this is going to be done and how we benefit for the future, not to have to go back and read it. It doesn't sound like there was a lot of research done on that particular piece of property when it was built. I do recall, and I can say, yeah, I voted for the land deal. I do recall that the bypass and all was going to be under construction way back then, and we thought that we could benefit by using DOT to help do some things in that area. I was not a part of that. I don't know whether the school board was or not in terms of preparing the land. grading and all, but it sounds as if we may have missed an opportunity back then. But it really needs to be looked at to ensure that whatever money we spend, we're gonna truly benefit not just today, but down the road, and not have to do it again.
The thing I'd like to see in phase one is some emphasis put on the drainage, correcting the drainage. I think that's the key thing out there, Dr. Moss, is getting the drainage right. I think we've got the drainage right, your parking lot, once we get it fixed, will be there.
Well, I think, again, my construction knowledge of fixing drainage is you have to excavate in order to fix the drainage. If you start excavating, then you can't just fix the drainage. You have to repair what's going to be on the surface as well. I think their first phase in here, and I'll go back and read again, but if I'm not mistaken, the first phase was more of a patching of the areas that have completely deteriorated. It's not necessarily fixing the drainage issues, because if you start going in there and cutting and excavating to fix the drainage, you're going to have to come back on top of it and do something with that top layer of pavement.
Right. But I saw some areas out there when I was out there that you could put additional catch basins without doing a lot of digging in the existing pavement. You might want to go out in the middle of it somewhere, if you've got if the elevation will allow it, and put a drop inlet to help control some of that water.
Right.
But I think we need to solve the water problem before we spend a lot of money on the paving.
John, are we increasing the amount that we're giving the schools in this year's budget for capital outlay?
Yes, ma'am.
And is there also lottery funds that the school applies for in addition to what we appropriate for capital funds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The total capital outlay that we recommended for this year was $1,630,331, an increase of $200,000 over last year. And you know, we also, in that original 1.4 million, had the pod payments that they're no longer paying, and so they had that, recoup that too as well to apply towards these projects, which, you know, we thought was something that was needed, so we left those funds there, so.
And if this board approves this request, this is additional money that's coming out of our general fund to pay for this, is that correct?
We would have to use our fund balance, yes, ma'am.
And
Okay.
let me just mention one thing. In order, to be transparent and not mislead the public, half of that 1.6 is the lottery money. That's not ad valorem taxes.
Well, here's my concern. You know, I look at this, and we are never going to get our budget under control if people can't plan and give us an estimate of what they need. So I don't want to dictate to them how they're going to use the money, but you know, we need to know when budgets are submitted and budget requests are submitted, what the needs are. And I can't believe that, you know, now all of a sudden after their initial list, this doesn't appear
If you
anywhere.
turn to that
So,
last page, Commissioner, you'll see the total of our needs, which is probably about $6 or $8 million.
and you know, I
next,
have a
in
lot
future years,
of,
I can format it differently for you, and we can request the entire dollar amount. But if you turn to that last page, and all the projects listed there are needs. What we've tried to do from a Board of Education perspective and a superintendent perspective is take into consideration the situation of the county financially, and not come to you with the entire $8 million worth of needs. But if that, it sounds like we're getting beat up a little bit because we've not done that, I can make sure that that will be the format if that's what you prefer.
all of us, you know, families in our county all have needs. Maybe some need new air conditioners, maybe some, but we all have to live within our budget. We have to prioritize the things that we need. So I guess I'm really uncomfortable with these 300,000 projects, other $100,000 projects coming in after the fact. We need to have everybody who gets county taxpayer dollars prioritize, anticipate their needs unless it's truly an emergency. And I don't see this being truly an emergency that could not have been predicted at the time these needs were put together. So at this point in time, this commissioner is going to follow the recommendations of our county manager, who is responsible for putting together a very challenging budget.
Let me just add one.
Thank you.
No, we have a motion. on the-
Just one comment on that. I believe that we must not lose sight of the fact that the state of North Carolina requires us to build and to maintain public school facilities for our school system, and that's a state law. And this is about maintaining a parking.
But I believe that there's nothing in the general statutes that require you to have an asphalt paved drive. I think you can actually have a gravel drive up there if that's what it comes down to. That's what it's become. It's crumbled asphalt and the potholes there. So I don't think there's anything, I wouldn't want to construe this to be a requirement under state law to have to spend $300,000 on repairing that drive, particularly when we haven't assured ourselves that it's just a $300,000 expense.
Madam Chair, I move we table this and send it back to the school board to have them to bring back what it would cost us for incremental.
There's already a motion on the table.
You can still table.
Yeah.
He moved to approve.
I would withdraw that to table it and to have a further
Mr.
example.
Hayes has withdrawn his original motion, and now the motion is to table this request until, can you state your motion?
The school board can bring it back to us and get some estimates on incremental construction.
Motion has been made to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes. Thank you, Dr. Mosh. You got a tough job.
We know you'll be back.
I try not to come back.
No, it ain't over, I know that.
Okay, before we go into the budget discussion, the reason I had moved these around is because there are some salary details in the budget that are really confidential and closed session items. And it's the feeling of this board, I've talked to several of my colleagues here, that we don't really intend to pass this budget today. There's still too many questions and answers, so that's just how I feel that we're going.
Well, that's good. That's good. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Hayes, I think you're with me on that. So right now then, I need to have
Madam
the-
Chair, I move we go into closed session to consider a personnel matter per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6.
Okay. Board will now go in, oh, we got a motion.
But let me just ask this question. I know this is going to be a slight inconvenience to some of the staff that are here. Is there any opportunity for us to go ahead and get a couple of those? Like, I know Ms. Kimball's here. There were a couple of items that were delineated in here. Do we want to go ahead and have them hear from them first and let them go, or do we need to go ahead and go to closed session first?
I don't anticipate the closed session lasting.
We'll go on last one.
Okay. All right.
The motion's been made to go in closed session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, I guess we'll go to the conference room.
What is it?
Which I think now has been determined to be 1 p.m. on the 18th.
Motion has been made to delay further discussion on the budget ordinance. Do you want to have the capital improvements program ballparked in that?
Yes, let's include that.
Okay. So which would be item C and D on new business, and move them to a second budget work session, which will be scheduled on Monday, June 18th at 1 p.m. Is there any discussion on that?
Yes, one point. For the benefit of the Board of Elections, we did also discuss that we would, there is no disagreement with appropriating the $5,100 for the election, so she can have that assurance, even though it hasn't been put to a vote yet.
For the extra that you need for the runoff.
Thank you.
Okay.
What was the motion?
No, it's not a motion. It was just an announcement.
These two items.
Just reassuring her, because she's on a tight timetable between now and the July runoff.
Okay.
And we have to appropriate those monies.
I agree, but why do we have to table it?
But we didn't table
We're going to readdress all of this on
We can't
June the
approve it today.
18th.
That's what I'm asking.
Right.
We cannot.
Well, you could.
I don't see what I'm asking.
Cannot approve what, Commissioner Reeves?
We're talking, well, I thought we were talking about the motion that Commissioner Hayes on, and then we started talking about the Board of Elections. So what I was asking was, why can't we extract the Board of Elections, put a motion on the floor to approve and let that be done?
Well, I think the reason we chose not to, because we're talking about a July runoff, which is the next fiscal year, and this is a budget ordinance item, and we're not actioning the budget ordinance at this point. I mean, we could give her the assurance that we're going to appropriate the
I'd
monies.
rather do that so that she has room to go ahead and move and do what she wants to do, or needs to do.
Okay, well, let's act on the motion to move
Right.
item C and D to our budget work session scheduled for Monday, June 18th at 1 PM. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, now,
You make the motion to extract it out.
or just make the motion to extract that and just appropriate it separately? Do you?
Correct. That is.
But we're not going to appropriate it out of this fiscal year's monies, right?
It's addition
We're
to.
simply approving a conditional change
To the budget ordinance.
budget ordinance. That gives her permission to go ahead and.
A bridge loan.
That way she can legally do it.
Okay, all those in favor of Commissioner Reeves' motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay. Managers report, John?
The only item I have to report, Madam Chair, is that I did speak with Dan Gerlach with the Golden Leaf. In our application for the $1 million for Frontier Spinning, it does say that the funds, when repaid, will be put into a revolving loan fund. So it was his belief that that's what it should be done for. And also, he felt that they were looking very favorably on the grant request from Lee County Industries for their equipment. And if they were to get the grant to buy the equipment, and then they got a grant, essentially their money through us for the operational piece of it, that's like double dipping, is how he kind of expressed it, and felt like, there should be local money, or that LCI should be earning other money.
So you're saying, in other words, that we cannot use the payback on the Frontier Spinning grant to use to benefit LCI?
We actually
For
can't use
this-
it for anything that's not a revolving loan, that's not paid back.
That was his belief.
Did it say it had to be a revolving loan?
It did say it would
In
be
the agreement?
used for our application did.
But see,
So he's going back to the application
Oh, okay. I thought the grant didn't
And the
specify
intent.
revolving loan.
and the intent that we said from the application. So
Who exactly would qualify?
Anybody
we
that
can
applies
make,
for a loan?
anybody that wants a loan, we have to set up some rules about
All we have
those
now is
things.
the application, or was there a final agreement?
The final grantee and acknowledge agreement specifies future economic development activities that meet charitable, educational, scientific, or tax-exempt public purposes within the meaning of Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. Proceeds from the lease or sale equipment may not be paid or otherwise transferred to the company's affiliates or principals. So that was really, that section is what covered what the funds could be used for as they were paid back, except in the application where we said that, what we were using it for, the intended uses. So that was his opinion. Of course,
So-
he works for a board as well, so.
Well, let me ask you this question then. So what does that actually mean to us in dollar amount that we got to come up with?
That means the $120,000 per year that the health department asked for their scanning is on us.
So it only affects the health department. It doesn't affect the social services piece.
We were not going to use it for social services. So the changes we made to the budget did put almost $60,000 in so that they could start scanning January 1st.
Is that enough to get it going without having to cough up more?
That's enough to get it going in this first year. And it was enough of a commitment from us that they'll get the equipment grant from the Golden Leaf.
Yeah, I think we could take some time then and perhaps revisit with Golden Leaf between now and this time next year about the use of the Frontier Spending Payback, and maybe get some qualification of that, maybe use some of that next year for this.
I think as long as the county has some skin in the game outside of that money, I think that would be probably more palatable, and we might just have to make it more of a formal request than just a telephone conversation. That's really all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, commissioners' comments. Commissioner Pascal? Commissioner Hayes?
Yes, yes, I have something I'd like to say. One of the budget items that has been brought to our attention, of course, is at our last meeting was the superintendent and the principal of Tramway speaking about the need for a supplement increase of 1%, and also the academic tutors.
Ambassadors?
No.
The curriculum
curriculum
coaches.
coaches.
Curriculum coaches as a critical need for the schools. I've talked with Mr. Crumpton, various ones of you. I don't know that it's going to be possible to do that. I don't think the budget has been constructed to do that this coming year. But I would like to make you sensitive to this just a couple of facts. They have not had an increase of any sort over the last 4 years, our teachers. And I don't know that it's going to be forthcoming from the General Assembly in Raleigh, not this coming year and perhaps after that. And there's a possibility that we may not see fit to do that and this year. But I want us to remember that these teachers they're very hardworking people, and they're professionals, and we're trying our best in Lee County to build our school system up. And we struggle to get it to the state average, and that wavers, but we've got to do everything we can to support our people. And this is a big industry. 10,000 students, 1,000 people on the staff. This is an industry. It's not a charitable organization. And I suppose my plea here, or just my sharing with you these thoughts, that our culture does not, I don't believe, give the type of recognition and praise and financial support to our educators that we need to do. This is true here, statewide, nationwide. And I don't know if we're going to ever get beyond it, but if we do believe that our teachers are the bedrock of our communities, teaching our youth, communicating with them and growing them to be responsible citizens of the future, we have got to put our weight behind supporting our teachers. And I think it's kind of unconscionable that between us all, we cannot find a way to give them a 1% increase. This is not a plea for that. It's just, I've been thinking about it. And of course, our teachers need it. These people are not heavily paid. And they earn what they make. And so I just would like for us all to be not only appreciative, which I know we are, but very sensitive to their trying to earn a living for themselves, their families, and that they merit an increase. And we need to find a way to do that in the very near future as soon as we can, in my opinion. Thank you.
You still gonna go home and skill the hog? Commissioner Wyrick?
Two brief items. One, in response to Commissioner Hayes's comments just now, I believe that there's a pending bill before the House, and actually the Senate was where it originated, on Excellent Education Act. And from what we were briefed on Assembly Day up in Raleigh, I was very encouraged about that. I think it's going to actually I think Senator Berger and others have done a pretty incredible job of putting together funding, at least some relief in the education area to try to compensate for the shortfall, and that they had in discretionary payback to the legislature from the LEAs. I think that I'm encouraged by that, and I'm hopeful that it'll move forward.
Would that be hung up in the Senate? Is that we're talking about?
It came out of the Senate, and I think it's actually going to be considered this week in the House. I'm not sure of its status at this point, but there's an Excellence in Education Act, or Excellent Education Act, or Excellent Schools Act, some title like that.
Would that address pay?
I don't know that it addresses pay. What it does is it reduces the pressure on the school systems to have to give back discretionary funds back to the General Assembly. They appropriate money to fund, and then they ask for money back.
Actually, it did address pay.
Did it address pay?
Yeah, it addressed structure, pay structure.
Right.
So
There's
they're
also,
still working through some of that.
State employees may be getting a little bonus this year too. So.
My point is that there is actually, even though it's a short session, and typically there's not any relief that's provided in a short session, there is an impetus there to try to do that. I think the second thing that people are not aware of right now is that there's been a lot of discussion about the shale gas industry and horizontal drilling. And there is a movement afoot in the legislature in the short session to go ahead and move forward and lift the ban on horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing. And I want people to be aware of that. I have, and just so there's no mistake, I have personally advocated for doing that and professionally advocated for that. And that's my feeling that it's best for all concerned, particularly in Lee County, and that I anticipate going up to Raleigh tomorrow. There's a committee hearing in Raleigh. I think it's our final shot at providing comments back to the Senate Energy Committee before they move forward. But I believe that the ban on drilling in North Carolina is going to be lifted this week or next week, and subject to the governor's approval. And last I heard, the governor was in favor of moving forward. So
last I heard, it was veto proof.
Yeah, so I just want the public to be aware that I've gotten some emails and some phone calls from constituents who are both in favor and opposed to it, and just make sure everyone knows that I am an advocate for doing that. And that's it.
Mr. Reeves?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Commissioner Hayes for his eloquent comments regarding the educational system and the needs. Would also like for him to supplement the school system name with the county staff that needs the same kind of addressing. Mm-hmm. I spoke to the manager early this year before we got into budget session to say, you know, we forget that our staff has suffered for several years now. Yes. And that we count on managers and superintendents to make those tough calls. And when that time comes, all the money we have is what we have. And so sometimes you have to make tough calls. And that's what we pay the manager for, and that's what the school board pays the superintendent for. Sometimes those sacrifices have to come from within. We just don't have the means to do that. I can appreciate how they might feel, but I also know emphatically how some of our own staff feel, having done without for the last 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
I have just a couple comments. Gaynell, how are we doing on our application for board vacancies? So I'm going to make a public plea again for folks to all those are on our website, right? To go to our website and take a look at all of the boards and commissions that we have vacancies for, and please apply if you meet the qualifications. I also know that one of them that's hardest to fill are those ag, because they're done by township. And I've been in contact with somebody who's very involved in Lee County. He owns a lot of property here, probably farm property in almost every township. He would love to be involved, except he's got a business here, but he doesn't physically live here. So I may be at the next meeting, if this doesn't get picked up, I may ask this board to maybe make an exception in our board policies for some of these appointments if we can't get the fillings there.
I believe it, and I'd be in favor of doing that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think if we got somebody who's got a lot of property that they own here, just because they don't live here, in those advisory boards, I think we'd be well served sometimes to get their input.
He's in Lee County every week.
Yeah.
So.
I know who you're talking about,
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what you're
Third thing is I'm asking my colleagues here, I have something on my calendar for Wednesday morning, I have no clue what it is. It's called an interdict meeting. Do any of you have that on your calendar? Do you know what this is? Is that the meeting we were originally gonna meet with
That
the
was
city
the,
of Broadway?
when you said that, that was the original.
Yeah, that was,
meeting.
yeah.
Okay, so I can delete it from my Wednesday calendar.
Yeah, because
they're gonna-
we've still got to find a date.
Okay. Okay. And now the last thing is completely unrelated, but I'm sure anybody who follows politics is going to be watching the state of Wisconsin tomorrow. I am a strong supporter of Governor Walker, and this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, but go Governor Walker. Not only beat him, but kick butt and take names. That's all I have to say. Okay.
We adjourn.
Adjourned. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Deep here.